Hello, everybody. I'm Alice Cooper, and welcome to Naked Lunch with special guest, Shep Gordon.
Hey, Phil.
Hey, do you know what Supermensch means?
It's nothing that I hear in my household from my wife, so I'm assuming it's a movie directed by Mike Meyers.
That's right, about a legendary manager named Shep Gordon. And we're going to go direct live from Maui, where he lives, where I just visited him, actually. And you is a fascinating guy. I want to recommend that movie, Supermensch, to all of you. But meanwhile, let's meet the Mensch himself,
Shep Gordon.
Let's spill the beans, chew the fat, food for thought, jokes on tap. Talking with our mouths full, having fun. A piece of cake and humble pie, serving up a slice of life. Leave the dressing on the side, it's naked lunch. Clothing optional.
And I love that Groucho picture you have behind you. I told you I had that album.
I know.
You produced him at Carnegie Hall, right?
Yeah.
The greatest
and
thing.
Groucho said to you the greatest quote about managers I've ever heard. Do you remember that quote?
Oh yeah, no, you're Shep, my manager. I say, yeah, Groucho. Funny, you don't look like a crook.
Groucho is good at being Groucho. Now, I guess I wanted to say that this is amazing because this is like the battle of the Supermensches. I would like to know whether you would like to challenge Phil to a Supermensch off at this point.
Supermensch off.
I will resign.
Okay.
I give it to not that I need to give it. He is Supermensch. There's a movie for those of you who haven't seen this movie. I recommend it. It's a great documentary made by Mike Meyers, the Mike Meyers, who you know from SNL and all the Austin Powers movies, about Shep's career, which briefly started representing rock acts and then kind of created the era of the celebrity chef. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. That's or so I've been accused of.
Yes.
You're two guys who were entertainment icons who desperately tried to flee to food, which amazes me.
I was just going to, when you were talking about my life, the second best line, it could be the first best line, other than Groucho's, was 1969. Jimi Hendrix looks at me and says, "You're Jewish, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You should be a manager." And he introduced me, and he's the one who introduced me to Alice Cooper, who I still manage 60 years later.
This happened around a pool at a hotel I passed on the way here to Phil's today.
Great.
It's not the same name of the hotel.
No, they changed the name, but it's that next driveway to the Magic Castle.
Exactly. And can you tell the nice people who was sitting around the pool in those days of the landmark hotel?
Janis Joplin ended up dying there, unfortunately, but she was a resident. The Chambers brothers, Bobby Newirth, who was Bob Dylan's road manager, so Bob was there a lot. There was a great group called the GTOs, Girls Together Outrageously.
Oh my God.
Who were just fantastic. They actually ended up doing an album on Zappa's label, but they had no talent for singing or acting. They were truly outrageous. Pink Floyd, Creedence Clearwater Revival, just about everybody came through. I would say the most exciting day from this bunch of sort of hippie degenerate rock and rollers was we looked up one day, and in the room that the Chambers brothers usually stayed in was all this female lingerie. The Ice Capades had checked in.
An upgrade.
And everybody got very happy.
And to test your rock history, the Chambers brothers, who did play a big part in all this, I want to give them credit. They have not only one of the greatest songs of all time, "Time Has Come Today," but I believe they're in rock history as one of the only bands, a band led by black artist with a white drummer. I think that was a unique fixture in those days.
Really unique. Yep. They the way I got the name for my company, which is Alive, ALIVE, was Willie Chambers was an artist. So when I was trying to think of a name for the company after this Jewish kid became a manager, he said, if there's a V in the word, I'll do a painting of the V as our peace sign. Time has come today. And that's how Alive came. We took out a dictionary, and in the A's was Alive. And my first card was drawn by Willie Chambers with that "Time has come today,"
which is still a great, great, great song.
Yep,
it is.
Can you talk about how did you two hook up recently in Hawaii? Can you tell us that story?
Somebody put us together for a lunch. Then I got a phone call over the holidays that you needed a private room for a group of people you had, and I have a restaurant there with Roy Yamaguchi, so I got you the room.
That's right.
And then Wolfgang, every New Year's, the first day of the New Year's, he has a luncheon that he lets me invite a lot of people to. And I invited Phil. I've always been a huge fan. I love the Netflix show. I love you guys' podcast. We're on such similar paths where we have a lot of passions, but food is definitely the passion, and respect for chefs and the culinary art. I don't meet many people who are so dedicated to enjoying and enhancing the culinary art. So I've always felt like this is like a brother from a different mother, although we don't know each other well.
No, I swear, I feel the same way. You feel like family instantly. And I love the way you figured out life. I mean, for those of you watching or listening, we're talking to Shep from his home in Maui. When did you move there?
I bought the house in 1974. I'm in the same house, 51 years.
That's incredible. And you never miss the hustle and bustle of the continental U.S.?
No, completely the opposite. I really enjoy the quiet. I enjoy jumping in the water every once in a while. I enjoy that. But I find the longer I'm here, the more coming to the mainland becomes just like a sensory bombardment.
Do you feel the problems of the United States when you're living in Hawaii? Because I don't when I'm on vacation there, but I wonder, yes, you're part of the United States.
I do. I watch way too much news.
Oh, you're in it. It's impossible. Isn't that's the problem with the modern age is no matter where you are, your phone is there and you get the alerts.
Yeah. When I first moved here, there was none of that. There was no cell phones, no internet. There was none of that stuff. It was a fax machine was really about the only way to communicate. I don't think even CNN had come on the air.
Yeah.
I forgot what year they started, but I think that might have been a little bit later. So, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoy being plugged in also, but nice to know it's at a distance.
You also, though, you keep such excellent company there. I think, Phil, you texted me when you were with Shep, and you were saying, I think I'm with some people you know. And I'm trying, can you tell us who it was? Because it was, I can remember Sammy Hagar.
Yeah.
I can remember who I do know, and Duff. Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses. Was Steven Tyler there or no?
But Alice Cooper was there. Yeah.
Well, and Alice, and just so people, in case people don't realize it, Alice was in a weird way, your first, and at this point, you've never stopped. This relationship, it may be the longest relationship in rock management history.
I think it's 58 years, 50, something like
Holy
that. We
cow.
started in 68 was you're Jewish, you should be a manager.
That's longer than Landau and Springsteen, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Way longer.
Yeah,
I think
way longer.
The only one that rivaled it is George Burns and his manager.
Wow.
They were together for, I think, about the same amount of time.
George Shapiro and Carl Reiner, maybe?
Maybe. There was Fine was his last name. I can't remember his first name, but him and George Burns were together forever.
But that's great. And he's such a sweetheart. You would never, if you see the act, you don't expect such a down-to-earth, nice person.
Yeah, Alice, incredible. And I was just amazing, like the fact that you guys, and I think this is, while you like to unplug, I've never seen anyone who works as hard to consistently do exciting things as Alice Cooper. I've been around a lot of these rock legends for my whole career, but like on the way here, I was hearing about he was in Vegas. I'm sure you know all about this, but rehearsing a residency or like a series of shows with Chris Angel, the magician.
I just came back from the first few days of rehearsal.
How was that?
It's amazing. It's just like I said to him, along those same lines, we were having dinner, and I said, we must be completely out of our minds. I'm 80 years old. He's 78. We just finished a new Alice Cooper show. We're going into a three-week rehearsal with Chris Angel to do something that's never really been done before, which is combining magic and rock and roll on a stage in one fluid show. And then he's going out with the Hollywood Vampires this summer. So he's doing 3 completely different productions in a 12-month period, which is completely insane.
We're back.
I guess if in terms of the secret of life, in Alice's life, what do you think it is that drives him? Because there was a time, I've been a fan since I was a kid. One of the first records I ever bought as a kid was the first Greatest Hits record, and I jumped on from that point. But there was a point when he was making, I think it was From the Inside, the record about rehab. I think he might be the first artist to write an album about rehab, with Bernie Taupin, and it was like, but the fact that he has had it's beyond a second coming. It's just like a remarkable sort of storyline.
Yeah, no, he's a remarkable person. We've never had a contract. We've never had an argument. There was a period of time when he started to really abuse himself with drugs and alcohol, where I bowed out for a couple of years. And I came back in because I didn't want to earn money to have him kill himself. And when I came back in, we never had one word, not one bad word, not one bad vibe, not one, why did you leave me? Why, none of that. He's just, he's the true Supermensch.
Oh,
the hardest work I've ever seen.
That's really nice.
You could ruin his career by telling that to the fans.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know.
It's just makeup.
Yeah. No, I think we've gone past that hurdle.
Yes.
For years and years and years, I worked really hard to try to hide who he really was, because we always felt that we built a career less on music and more on hatred of parents. We realized early on that if parents hated something, kids would naturally cling to it. So that was really what we built. That was the basis of the basis of the career. And once we let go of that, we realized that the music really worked too.
You've been a manager that everyone would want, because you really do care about your clients and you get involved with them almost in a, and I mean this as a total compliment, in a Broadway Danny Rose kind of way.
Yeah, very much so.
Right? Where it becomes personal. Remember that scene in Danny Rose, which is my favorite Woody Allen movie, by the way, where it's just, they says to him, it's not personal, Danny, it's just business. He goes, what do you mean? Of course it's personal. I get your laundry. I do your thing. I do this. I do that. I'm in your life. What do you mean it's not personal? And of course it's personal. Personal management, right?
For me, it always was.
Yeah.
I would tell clients that I'm not the guy who's going to make you the most amount of money. There are other people who do that. but no one's going to ever ask you what your second name is. You could say, I'm Alice, I'm Groucho, I'm Raquel, I'm Luther, I'm Teddy, because I really cared about their lives and their careers and not just about the banking aspect of it.
Right.
And when he says Raquel Welch, this is a thing that came across in a few interviews I've heard with you over the years, but you have the secret to what might unlock. Phil for years has been obsessed with HBO's, like the old shows that used to be from Vegas on HBO. And
Remember they used to tape everything? They used to tape every act?
Well, it may be that Shep is responsible for one of the first ones, which was Raquel Welch. Can you tell the story?
We were the first. I mean, I'll tell you a little story. I don't know how much this has ever been heard, but I think I did tell once one in the books. I was trying it when HBO came on the air. I wanted to do concerts. I was managing probably 12 or 13 acts, and most of whom were playing Vegas. The Pointer Sisters, Frankie Valli. I had Alice. I had Teddy Pendergrass, Rick James, Luther Van, and I wanted HBO to do a music special. And the head of HBO was a fellow named Michael Fuchs.
Yep.
And I would go to Little Italy with him. He loved Little Italy. We'd eat dinner, and I'd say, "Come on, man, let's do some music specials." And he'd say, No. All I want to do is porno, because that's the only thing. That's the only thing that gets ratings. But it's a Warner's company. I can't do porno, and that was every single time, because that was the only thing that was really making any money on cable. Was things that were off color in those days. And at one point, I said to him, "What about if we had Raquel Welch and her dress fell off?" He said, "If you can get her dress to fall off, you will be the first special." So I went to Raquel's house. And I said, "Listen, I got really good news and some pretty dicey news." And she said, "What's that?" And I said, Caesar's Palace has been questioning whether to renew your contract or not. And I had a conversation with them, and they said if we could become the first HBO special, they'd renew the contract. And I went to HBO, and they have a problem. They really don't want to do music specials. But after a lot of conversations, I said to them, "Well, what about if Raquel had her dress fall off during the show?" And Raquel looked at me, "What?" And I said, "No, we don't have to show anything. We just have to allude, and you just run off stage and put it back on." And that, "You're kidding me. You're my manager, and you would talk to me about the dress falling off." "We don't have to do any nudity. We just have to allude. The audience just has to know it fell off and you ran off stage. And if you go watch the HBO special, her dress falls off." So I always think of Janet Jackson.
You were way ahead of the curves.
Yeah, but that was how the first music special got on HBO.
That's amazing and a little sad.
Yeah, and very sad.
That's what it took to get a special. Yeah. Netflix does the same thing with me.
They want your shorts to fall off.
Yes, that's it.
The worst wardrobe malfunction in food TV history.
Look at him laugh. It's not that funny, Shep.
Was Emeril Lagasse the first sort of food star you made? Was that sort of the origin?
It wasn't so. He became the lead pony of a movement. I was about 35 years old, and I won the Cannes Film Festival with a movie called The Duelist.
Oh yeah, great movie.
I got taken to a restaurant in the south of France, and I wasn't a happy person. I was happy in every moment, but I knew I was headed for a wall. By that time, Janice had died, Jim had died. I could see myself following that path. And I just wasn't finding joy at it. I had the Rolls Royce, and I had a nightclub, and I was married to a playmate, and I had all these things that were very superficial. And the chef walked into the room, and when I saw the chef, and there's just something about him that made me say, if that's who I want to be, because he was successful and he looked really happy.
Yeah.
And so I went over to him and I asked him, in those days there was a show, Kung Fu. I asked him if I could be his grasshopper and see where he got this joy from. And he had no idea what I was talking about. He barely spoke English. What is this grasshopper? And make a long story short, I ended up, he sent me to cooking school. I came back the next 15 or 20 years and we'd take a bus trip. And we became really good friends. His name was Roger Verger.
Of course.
I didn't know at the time, but he was the world's first 5-star Michelin chef. And when I met him, I was a ketchup and macaroni guy. Through my time with him, I got to meet most of the great chefs. And at one point, about 15, 20 years into our relationship, I said, Mr. Verger, you go in the back door, I go in the front door. And then we meet after your events. But I'm not a front door guy. I manage people. I like the back door. Let me be your tour manager. And I went out as a tour manager and realized that how horribly these chefs were being treated as cooks, not as artists.
Yeah.
They weren't getting paid. They were getting no respect.
Yeah.
And I told Wolfgang the story, and Wolfgang organized about 60 chefs and lunch and asked if I would help them all, bring the talent that the talents that I would, my talent for artists to them. So I banded them all together in an agency, about 110 chefs, many of whom I never even had met. And we got the Food Network on the air, and Emeril was the breakout artist on the Food Network. So he became the first celebrity chef out of what was a much bigger idea. The idea was to build bridges to their audiences. As I told them in those days, Michael Jackson would have been a wandering minstrel if there wasn't radio, albums, TV, concerts, and they were all basically wandering minstrels. They only spoke to the 100 people in their restaurant that night. Nobody had 2 restaurants. Nobody had products. Nobody had mass communication. So that's what I felt my job was to build bridges that generations of artists could walk down. And the first thing we did was luckily got the Food Network on the air. And through that, we were able to start the journey.
So there was a peak period of that. And tell us what you think the reason is for it disappearing in a way.
Yeah, I can I can remember the moment.
Yeah.
Everything was going fairly well in all worlds. In the TV world, cable had now, when Food Network started, there were maybe 20 cable channels that had content. There were hundreds of channels, but none of them had content. And the cable show started to develop, and Food Network ratings were 0.8, 0.9. One point they finally hit a 1 rating, but other networks were starting to really get ratings, the ESPNs or those type of things. So they brought in a person who wasn't a culinary person, but who was a broadcaster. And she changed the mentality from culinary arts to winners and losers. And once they went to winners and losers, they started to get ratings. But the whole concept of culinary arts got thrown out the window.
This is when I found them.
Yeah. And it really was about when winners and losers took over.
Yep.
It just took away that whole, their ratings went, they got what they wanted.
Yep.
But for the culinary community, it was sort of a real
I told
setback.
you, David, when I was pitching my food and travel show, I met with the president of Food Network, and he said, we're kind of getting away from the food thing.
Yeah.
This would have been
amazing. Well, Reese, the fellow who started it was Reese Schonenfeld.
Yeah.
He had started CNN.
Yeah.
When he dropped out, they gave him a coupon at cable. They said, "Come on, start another channel," because there were very few channels.
Yeah.
And he hated the culinary arts and was very vocal about it.
Yeah.
But I was able to get all the talent for him for free. Nobody got paid. That was my deal with the chefs, was let me go out and get a broadcast syndicate, but you have to agree to work for free for 3, 4, 5 years. So he had no talent costs. So he started the food channel because there were no talent costs. He gave each of the shows, we got one commercial free.
Huh.
So I developed products for each of the chefs. Emerald, we did the spices.
Yeah.
Mary Sue and Sue, we did 2 hot tamales was the name of the show.
Right.
So we did packaged chilies.
Yeah.
But yeah, he never liked the culinary arts, so it was very easy for him to switch over.
This would have been in the 2000s, maybe?
Yeah, I'd say mid 1990s.
Yeah.
I'd say maybe 93 or so. CNN Food Network came on right.
No, but I mean the end of it.
The end of it was, yeah, right about the end of the.
Right as I was going out with this idea for a food and travel show. Yeah.
And Shep, can you say, I talk to a lot of people who really love Somebody Feed Phil, and not just it's a nice show, that it emotionally connects with them. And you, at your very high level, with your long history with show business and food, what do you love about the show?
I love the passion. I mean, Phil is so real. You don't get too much real anymore in life in any corner.
That's very sweet. I'd love to do a scene with you in one of our shows. You have to come and meet me.
And your family. It's so great. It's so real.
We had a good time with you. You were saying it before that you have this annual New Year's Day brunch with Wolfgang, and Shep invited my whole family and Ray Romano's whole family, who we were vacationing with as we do every year. And we go to the Spago in Maui, and Wolfgang has just, I think the word is killed us with food.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then he brings out this giant fish as the centerpiece, and he wants us to go take a picture with him around the fish. So we take a picture around the fish, and there's a bunch of photographers there. I guess they're for him for Spago.
Yeah,
the photographers. Yeah, and Wolfgang is, as the cameras are rolling, he picks up his sauce decanter and is pouring the sauce and talking to camera as he pours it, and misses the fish and pours the sauce all over my shoes.
You were the honored guest.
That's true. That's that's good luck, I think.
Yeah. And I have to say, my shoe was delicious.
Yeah.
We've had
That was a beautiful pineapple glaze on that fish.
Oh my God. He's actually, for as famous as he is, and people see him as a celebrity, he's underrated as a chef, I think.
I agree. Yeah.
He is a great chef. When I remember events where there's multiple chefs cooking a big dinner for, let's say, a charity thing, he's always the star. I mean, and not famous because he's famous, but because his dishes are the tastiest, the best, the ones you want to, that you crave.
Yeah. No, he's something.
He really knows.
And I love what's going on now is that all of them are cooking with their kids.
That's right.
I was at an event in Vegas a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
It was Wolfgang and his son and Charlie Palmer and his son.
Oh.
And Charlie's doing an event soon. That's Charlie and his son, Wolf and his son, John George and his son.
Oh. Wait a minute. Emerald's son.
Emerald and his son at the same event. And Tim Ryan, who was the head of the CIA, and a chef and his son. So there's 5 or 6 chefs with their sons cooking the meal.
Didn't Emerald's son just get a big accolade?
Yeah, just got Michelin star.
A Michelin star.
See,
Fantastic.
someone like Wolfgang to me is like Alice Cooper. They continue to have the passion. Like Wolfgang has places all over the world. He's on tour like a rock star, checking in at all these restaurants, and it seems like that's what it takes. Is like that overwhelming just sort of energy to stay engaged with what you're doing.
Yeah, and being of service. I think it really, whether you're a rock star or whether you're a great chef, it's a being of service to your audience. You won't find a great chef who doesn't give the customers their old hits. Same thing with rock stars. You'll find younger bands who leave out the hits.
Yeah.
And you find younger successful chefs who take things off the menu that everybody loves.
Yeah.
If you go to Wolfgang, you can get a salmon pizza. You can get a fish cone. You
Right.
go to a Rolling Stone, you're going to get songs you know.
Right. That salmon pizza is his School's Out. It's,
And that's
his
being of
elected.
service.
Yes.
That's because it's got to be so boring to do Schools Out 25,000 times, but that's not the important part. It's not about you. It's about serving people and making them joyful.
That's it. And also the attention to detail doesn't go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Making sure that salmon pizza is great for every single customer.
I always felt it was so similar. Alice will show up in dungarees. Wolfgang will show up in dungarees. When Alice hits the stage, he's got his costume on. When Wolfgang goes inside the restaurant, he's got his whites on.
Yeah.
There's so many similarities.
Well, you were the one, I believe. I got to Esquire in 1984, right out of college. And I believe you were the sort of, there was a message that went out, I think, in Esquire and some magazines that chefs are the new rock stars. That was, and I believe that was your sort of line that you did convince the world, and you were right. I mean, like we had on Wolfgang, Roy Choi, another
Thomas
one,
Keller.
Thomas Keller.
Yeah.
I love Roy Choi.
Yes.
I think he is a rock star. And in fact, when he tells a story,
He just embodies everything that I always dreamed the culinary arts could produce. He's the complete package. He cares about humans. He can make $100 meal, but he's really happy to do a $5 meal. He never puts himself first, and he understands his job is to feed humans, and not just buy new houses. I love him. I think for me, he's a role model.
Yep.
can I ask you about one of your clients who I love musically and still listen to all the time, but history, there was such a tragic sort of end to his life that Teddy Pendergrass, sometimes I think people don't appreciate how great he was, but you played a huge part in the sort of his solo career and becoming an icon. But can you just tell me a story about him as a person? Because I so wish I had ever gotten to know him.
He was really amazing. He was a really interesting cross of humble and arrogant. I don't know any other way to put it. He had both of those things really deeply embedded in him. But for me, he was such a joy because I could talk to him. I could have this "don't be a schmuck" conversations. That was always my guiding line for artists. If I didn't feel I could have a "don't be a schmuck" conversation, I didn't want to work with him. And he the most beautiful man, just beautiful. But yet I could have those conversations with him. The first time we went through, when I started with him, we went through a fairly tough period because in those days there was a thing called the Chitlin Circuit, which I didn't know about when I signed them. And it was black artists could only work for black promoters who usually didn't pay the artist. And we ran into it pretty early in the game. And we sort of, Teddy and I had one of those conversations of, listen, it may get serious, which it did, but we can't let this happen. It was the way I felt when I went around with Mr. Verger for the culinary artists. It was the same thing. They weren't getting respect. They weren't getting paid. So we booked the Roxy Theater, white owned, Lou Adler owned it. We got threats. FBI had to protect us that night because we were breaking the Chitlin circuit. And he did his show on a stool, thinking that he was now playing to a white audience. He shouldn't do the show he used to be doing. And I had no idea he was going to do it. After the show, I had one of those "don't be a schmuck" conversations with him, which he took really well. And out of that night came the for women only concerts. Because I said, listen, Teddy, I love you. I love your music. Live, there isn't a woman in the hall who doesn't want to make love to you. And if you don't fuel that fire, you're not serving your audience. You got to fuel the fire. And we came up with the idea of doing shows for women only just to drive that point across.
Which is how I became a fan of him. That was that story of him doing these women-only shows. I
remember you used to dress up to get in.
Exactly. There's some talk of making Phil should do the for women-only tours.
You should do for women only.
And he could give scarves and sweat for women.
Napkins.
A couple of my favorite just background management stories from that. First, after we came up with the idea, everybody was against it. The lawyer quit because he said there'll be so many civil rights lawsuits. I'm not being the lawyer anymore. The record company didn't want anything to do with it. And we always were going to sell tickets to men. We weren't going to stop it. We just wanted to say it. But so the first management thing was, if I have a picture of Teddy, who's the best looking guy in the world, saying for women only, it's so arrogant that even I would hate him, and I love him. So we ended up using a teddy bear as a full-page ad with a little note on it that said, "Come spend the night with me, love Teddy."
Great.
And I was trying to think of, okay, these women are out in the audience. He's getting them crazy, so I'm going to have 10,000 male dogs in heat, but being females. How do I let them show that? How do I let them get the steam off without it getting really ugly? So we gave every person who came in a chocolate teddy bear lollipop that they could bite and lick on. And
how Freudian of you!
Yeah, no. So it was, for me as a manager, those were the two greatest parts of those shows. Looking at the audience, looking at these women biting the chocolate teddy bear.
You've said a lot that music is not your passion, and that you found your passion in other things, food and even spirituality and life itself. But musically, you once said that one of your favorite songs ever is one of my, I have 3 or 4 favorite songs that I shift around.
Everybody.
Wake Up Everybody with Harold Melvin Blue Notes, sung by Teddy Pendergrass, because Harold Melvin didn't sing those songs. Harold Melvin.
I didn't know that until I got asked to go see the solo artist, Teddy Pendergrass, by the record company. And I didn't really want to go. And when he sang the song, oh my God, I thought that was Harold.
What a great singer he was. What a great artist. And if you see Supermensch, I think with a lot of urging from Shep, you got him on stage at Live Aid to sort of, return after his tragic accident. And it's so beautiful. I watched Supermensch again last night, and seeing him sing with Ashford and Simpson, it just was so beautiful, because even that was him back on a stool in a way, but back on a in a wheelchair, and yet stripped of all of what the ladies only sex vibe. He was still absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, and went out on tour, and got a gold record,
amazing,
which we were really proud of. I love Teddy. Teddy musically, for me, that's the artist that I really enjoy the most.
Oh,
he even played a part in. Do you know much about Shep's, one of the founders of independent cinema, before Steven Soderbergh or whatever? There was. Can you talk about how you and I think Teddy helped with the song. You wanted to get Teddy some money, but you ended up starting independent cinema a little bit.
It's most of the story is ugly, so I'll leave the ugly parts out. There was a fellow named Chris Blackwell who started Island Records, and in Rolling Stone, they Ahmet Ertegun said, if you can find the heartbeat in Chris Blackwell, I'll give you $1 million.
Oh.
And he had that reputation. And he always wanted, I had started a small film company and won the Cannes Film Festival with our first movie.
Alan Rudolph's movie, right?
No, it was
Duelist. I'm sorry.
Duelist, Ridley Scott's first movie. And then we did Roadie with Alan Rudolph at Warner Brothers that had all the artists in it. Did pretty well. And Chris came and wanted to do a joint venture. He had a little film company, also Island Pictures. And everything I knew about him said stay away. So I wouldn't even take the meeting. People in my office took the meetings. There was no reason for me to take the meeting to be with, his nickname was the Babyface Killer. And then I read this thing from Ahmed, and I think Chris is still around. So, I mean, this is all public knowledge. And when Teddy had the accident, he was supporting a lot of children, didn't have a lot of money in the bank. And I needed to find a way to make him money. And I went up to his house, and his mom let me go through the tapes. And I found enough material for another album. And people in the record companies had promised me $1 million for the album. And they ended up not giving any of the money. They got the $1 million, but they didn't pass it through. And I had gone to Teddy in the hospital and told him I could get him $1 million if we could give this record to somebody other than PIR, who didn't want to pay anything. That's the ugly part of the story. So he was in a hospital. He couldn't even talk. He was just blinking, yes or no blinks. And I couldn't go back to the hospital room and tell him I didn't get the $1 million after he had signed off and let me do this. And I didn't have $1 million to give him. If I had $1 million, I would have given him my $1 million. But right then, a fellow named Bob Krasnow took over Elektra Records. And he was a really good friend of mine. And I went in and literally crying, telling him the story. And he said that if I could manufacture something for his files, because we all thought Teddy was going to die, if I could manufacture something for his files, Teddy had a clause that said he could do one soundtrack album outside of the record company. He would give me the $1 million, realizing Teddy may die and he won't get it, but he needed to have protection in his file. So I went to Luther, who recorded a song like that 10th Generation and used all these machines to sound like Teddy, and a song called Choose Me. And then I went to Alan Rudolph, who I had a relationship with, and I asked him to write a script of this song, but we never make the movie. I was honest with both of them. Alan wrote the script, Luther did the song, Teddy got the $1 million. Luckily, he ended up getting a gold record for Krasnow, which recouped him. But about 3 or 4 months after Alan gave me the script, he called me up one day and he said, "Hey, Shep, remember that favor I did for you?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I need a favor." I go, "Oh, what's that favor, Alan?" "I want to make the movie." I said, "Come on, Alan, don't do this to me." And so I called up Chris Blackwell and I said, "Listen, I'm willing to make a deal with you if you'll finance this movie called Choose Me." And that's what started the independent film company.
Wow.
And was the film world uglier or less ugly than the music world?
I would say
there's plenty of ugly to go around.
Yeah, there's plenty of, well put. Thank you, Phil. I would say equal. In both of them, you dealt with an older regime that had the power, who were so jaded by the time you got there that they just didn't care about anything. And under them, they had young kids who didn't know anything who made all the decisions. And that was both in the record companies and in the film companies. So it was very frustrating if you really cared and if you were trying to protect an artist. And for my position, it was really tough. So having an independent film company, we didn't have to talk to anybody. We did our own distribution, we did our own production, we did our own financing. And we got to make some nice movies, Kiss of the Spider Woman, a beautiful piece, Koyaanisqatsi, Betty Davis and Lillian Gish's last movie, Whales of August.
Oh, yeah.
These were all movies that no studio would ever let us make.
How did Mike Meyers approach you to do a documentary about you? And were you on board immediately, or did it take a lot of convincing?
It took years and years. I had become friendly with him, and I love telling stories, as you can tell. It's hard to shut me up. So he bought a house in Maui, and he would come over for dinner a lot, and he'd have written on his hands the names, different names, and he'd say, okay, Albert Finney, tell me an Albert Finney story. And I'd always have a story. Some of them I had to make up, but I always had a story. and he would say to me, we have to record this. We got to get these stories down. These are just too good.
Yeah,
let's make a documentary. I've always felt that fame is it's like, it's like holding a sword in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it can turn you on at any time. It's a weird fame is a weird thing, as I'm sure, Phil, you're getting a taste of it here and there.
It is amazing to wake up at this age and find yourself Taylor Swift.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. But and I had seen so many people really hurt by it that I didn't want any part of it. I had a nice life in Hawaii. I knew I was never going to become really famous, not famous enough to change my life. I had what I needed. And so I kept telling him no for years. I said no. And then I ended up in the hospital I got very lucky. It's something I should have died from, but I lived.
Yeah.
And I woke up, and at that point, I didn't have a wife.
Yeah.
My kids, my adopted kids, none of them were living in Maui. So I woke up to an empty hospital room. And the phone rang. My first phone call was Mike. And he said, well, now you want to do the documentary?
Oh.
And I was feeling so sorry for myself.
Yeah.
That I said yes.
Huh.
And then a couple of weeks later, I tried to say no, and he said he had already hired a staff.
It turned out great. You should be happy with it.
I'm very happy I did it, actually.
Yeah.
Against all the things I thought of, I enjoy my little bit of fame. Because I get so many people reaching out to me.
Yeah.
Who I can do something for in some small ways, and it keeps me excited.
What's your advice for young people who are artists of whatever kind, be it a chef or an actor or a writer, when they're looking for representation? What guidance can you give a young person? Because, I made the stupid mistake of thinking that the agent works for you when I first got an agent. Oh, great. The agent's going to work for me. And then I quickly realized, wait a minute, the agent works for the agency.
Exactly. Yeah. I think you just got to keep trying every avenue. You keep throwing it against the wall until you get lucky.
But are there telltale signs in your experience for a young person to look out for when somebody says, hey, I'll be your agent or I'll be your manager?
It's really hard, because I remember telling Teddy that when I managed him, the first time I went to meet him, there were 30 of the best bullshit artists who were all managers at the door. And I said, the thing you're least equipped to do is to know which one of us is telling the truth. So I think, you got to jump in the water. And just keep trying everything. I don't think there's any way to tell who's real and who's not until you jump in the water with them.
It's true. I was going to write a book called Everyone's Nice in the Meeting.
Right? Yeah. It's
Well,
not over. You can still write that one.
but even beyond show business, from the movie, it sounds like you were sort of offering your services in a selfless way to the Dalai Lama at one point. And I was recently thinking about him because I work on the Grammys. This is my 25th year. And Trevor Noah, our host, was up against the Dalai Lama in a Grammy category. And I was like, and it was also one of the, either Millie or Vanilli. And like at the right as the show was about to begin, I was like, Trevor, did you win? And he goes, no, the Dalai Lama won, which I then heard China was furious that he won. I don't know. I don't know if you've gotten to, do you like the Dalai Lama even more now that he's a Grammy winner?
Yes, absolutely. He well deserved.
He finally got a little credibility.
I had an embarrassing moment. My book came out the same time his did, and I was higher on the chart. But I completely manipulated him. And he was for real. Yeah, that was an amazing part of my life. But I think just getting back to what a young artist does, I think, I probably get 10 or 15 a week reaching out to me.
For you to be their manager?
If I'm still managing, yes. What advice could I give them?
Yeah.
And I talk to all of them.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy to do it. So that, you just got to keep trying. You keep going.
Yes.
I recommend, I'll recommend managers depending on what field they're in.
Yeah.
I'll recommend managers to them. I'll tell them the stories about, don't be so naive to think that someone's going to do the work for you. But, if you can get someone whose name you can put next to yours, that can help you sell yourself.
Yeah.
I think you just keep trying everything and be persistent and pure to your dream, and hope that you have parents who can give you some resources.
No small thing.
Yeah, no small thing.
But I think what you're saying, that resilience, I think about that with some of your friends who I do know. Like I know Steven Tyler very well for many years. I know Mick Fleetwood, for many, many years. Those are two people I think of. They have literally, Steven Tyler never wanted to stop. And he stayed, in my experience, he once called me on Yom Kippur and said, and he was not young and I was not young. This is maybe 15 years ago. I don't know. He called me and said, David, I figured out what love is. You need to come on the road with me tonight. And we're going to write a book about what love is. And I was like, it was one of those, a conversation only Steven Tyler could ever have. And I looked at my wife and my in-laws and I'm like, well, I'm not leaving my house on Yom Kippur to write a book about love. And I'm not
Steven
sure.
Tyler.
Yes, with Steven Tyler. But I always loved his, and again, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but just the way Mick, his life force, kept Fleetwood Mac going, through so much. I just think that's maybe as close to a secret of life as I have encountered.
Yeah, no, I think, you keep driving. You just keep driving. Sammy. No one.
Sammy Hagar.
Sammy. I think also being lucky enough to be able to earn your living from something you're passionate about, which always doesn't happen.
No, but that passion has to be in kind of your self manifestation. You have to make it happen. They're not waiting for you. They're not going to do it for you. You have to write your own ticket.
Yeah, and just keep doing it and doing it and doing it.
Yeah.
The 10,000 rule.
That's right. Or the 10,000 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
To get good at it.
In the culinary arts, I think easier than in the entertainment world.
Well, yeah, it's an actual skill you can hone. Yeah.
And also you can, I tell young guys, go take a job as a dishwasher. I don't care if you're a CIA grad.
That's right.
Just get in there somewhere.
That's right. If you want to be a writer on a sitcom, we used to say, try to get the PA job. So at least you're in the room.
Exactly. So you're in the room.
Yeah. The room where it happens.
Exactly.
What's next for you? You're going to have a nice, I see you on the beach in a hammock. That's what I see is next for you.
No, I'm much more playing basketball and football with my 5-year-old.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's so
what
great.
life is sort of about these days, raising him. And I still do Alice, and he stays so active.
Our kids on the island, they're just fish. They just love the water. They go in the water every day.
Yeah, most of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't. They're not even aware of how lucky they are.
Yeah, they think that's everybody has the ocean like that. The gorgeous Hawaii. Yeah. And the water's beautiful, warm, and it's filled with fish, and it's just paradise.
For the most part, the people are still wonderful and warm.
Yes. Do you visit the other islands a lot too?
Not much.
You're happy there.
Yeah, I'm really happy here.
Yeah. I want to visit you as often as I can.
Please come back.
And you got to come see us and come to the diner.
You got to come to the diner.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. I hear great things.
Right. Before you had Max and Helen's, weren't you one of the owners of Carlos and Charlie's?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Were you here for that era of Hollywood?
I don't think so. When was that?
That was, I think I opened it in 80 up until maybe 2000.
Wow.
I would say somewhere around there.
I was here for some of that. What part of town was that?
On Sunset Boulevard.
Wow.
Right
How
there.
come I don't know this?
Oh, it was
Pretty notorious, but it's a good statement on your morality if you didn't know.
I didn't know Carlos and Charlie. I knew Nate and Al.
There were a lot of references to Carlos and Charlie's I knew it from the East Coast because stars who got arrested would often have been there the night before.
Ah, that's it.
I think.
Oh, so this is
Eddie
a rock and roll
Eddie
place.
Murphy being one of the famous ones.
Oh my God, Eddie Murphy! Yeah, that was quite an incident. I'm amazed you know that story.
I think I know that story.
Yeah.
If it's the same story you're thinking of.
It was the first day of shooting Beverly Hills Cop. So I had to get him. He ended up in jail at the club, and then I had to get him out of jail for the first morning of shooting, which was harder than getting him in jail. Because he said to the sheriff, "If you want me out of here, I'm not leaving." So they had to throw him out of jail.
By the way, cut to not that many years ago, I went up to his house, where he lives here, and he now lives like you. I think you'd have more in common. There was that angry young man was making great records. He had a country song he played me that was really, really, really good. And he had kids around, and he's built a home that looks much like it's his own Four Seasons. I thought, all right, he seemed like a happy man when I saw him.
He comes here every year. I take a morning walk to the Four Seasons for coffee every day. And he comes once a year with a very large contingent of kids and people, maybe 20, 25 people. And I hide my face every time I walk past it. He might remember.
It's funny.
But I see the joy he gets from the family from a distance. Yeah, it's really nice to see.
Well, you give me a lot of joy. I'm very happy to see you again. And I can't wait to see you. When are you coming here?
I think I'm coming in I'm coming in this weekend for that. They're dedicating a statue to Pat Riley.
Ah.
It's a pretty busy weekend.
This weekend you're here?
Yeah, so maybe I think I do have a morning maybe.
All right, you let me know.
I'll let you know.
All right. We love you, Shep. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Naked Lunch is a podcast by Phil Rosenthal and David Wild. Theme song and music by Brad Paisley. Produced by Will Sterling and Ryan Tillotson. With video editing by Daniel Ferreira. And motion graphics by Ali Ahmed. Executive produced by Phil Rosenthal, David Wild, and our consulting journalist is Pamela Chellan. If you enjoyed the show, share it with a friend. But if you can't take my word for it, take Phil's.
And don't forget to leave a good rating and review. We like 5 stars,
Thanks for listening to Naked Lunch, a Lucky Bastards production.